Nelson has forged ahead at his own steady pace through the ups and downs of the larger economy. No booms or busts, just measured progress, with time to take care and time to choose the best ways to grow. Nelson is welcoming new pioneers with new visions, people who seek the quality and intimacy of a friendly community and the enjoyment of an unspoiled environment. They come with their own dreams and for their own special reasons. Inevitably, they weave themselves into the fabric of this unusual city. For them, it is like coming home.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Nelson Nightline, Shock Cable's live bi-weekly phone-in talk show. I'm Morrie Zaitlin, and I'll be your host tonight, along with my co-host Marianne. On tonight's show, we're going to focus on why people continue to move to the Nelson area. Nelson Nightline viewers, both new pioneers with their new visions and longtime residents, will be given the opportunity to phone in and express their opinions and ideas about why you moved here to Nelson and what you have brought with you, and why the area will grow and prosper. We'd like to hear from you tonight with any suggestions about what types of businesses and services you would like to establish here. Is there anything missing, or is this Shangri-La? We have 5 special guests tonight, but before we introduce them, or begin with your calls, I'd like to say hello to Marianne and let her continue. Good evening, Marianne.
Good evening, Morrie. Good evening, everyone. Nelson is welcoming a new breed of entrepreneur, one who places quality of life high on their priority list. Just before we meet with 2 of these entrepreneurs, we'll look at the first of 3 segments of street interviews. We've been fortunate to have Mike Ovenell join our Nelson Nightline volunteer crew. Mike was out on Baker Street last Friday to ask Nelson residents why they have moved to Nelson. We'll be back in a few minutes with Dieter and Patty from the Nelson Brewing Company.
It's beautiful and they got a lot of cool people here. I used to live here and then I moved away.
And you came back?
Yes.
Why did you come back to Nelson?
I got a divorce.
I did come here because of the healthy, the atmosphere here, the air, and the fact that the crime wave is behind me and it's not here at all.
I like the community. It's an interesting place. It's not a one-industry town. It I think is a vision of where BC can be in the future for small towns in the interior where they kind of have to live off their wits.
We were led here. We originally wanted to go out to the East Kootenay side, and we felt that the towns there were a bit too small for our liking, and so we were very drawn to the heritage buildings and the hustle and bustle, and yet still be a small community, still be a small town kind of feel. So it had a bit of everything there for us.
I came here because I left the coast and I had an opportunity to buy a piece of property from my in-laws and raise my children.
Because my husband was transferred here.
I'd visited here a couple times before, and I liked it. I just liked the scenery in the area.
Never lived in Nelson.
Never lived in Nelson, though.
Welcome back to Nelson Nightline. Today's show is focusing on why people continue to move to Nelson. We're going to start by introducing our first 2 special guests tonight, Dieter Feist and Patrick Glenny of the Nelson Brewing Company. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. Good evening.
I see you brought some of your sample product here tonight. Thank you very much. We're going to open up the phone lines in a couple of minutes. The phone number to phone is 354-4200. We'd like you to phone in and maybe tell us why you moved to Nelson, what you see happening here, what you like about it. Now, I think maybe you guys can tell us how you came about to come here and open up a brewing company. I'll start with you, Patty.
Well, long story if you got time. I started the Glenny Brewery Company in Oxford, well, just outside, in a small town just outside Oxford in England in 1982, and ran it until 1989 when Dieter, who was living in Nelson at the time, decided that he'd like to start a brewery here. And so Dieter's wife is English. She's a very old friend of my wife, back from days in Oxford a long time ago. And so Dieter's wife suggested to Dieter that he contact my wife and ask and get my wife to ask me whether Dieter could come and work in the brewery in England for a while to see what it's like, the nuts and bolts of actually running a small brewery. So this was arranged. Dieter came over to England in July of, I think it was 1989, and worked in the brewery for a month or so. Told me of his plans to start up a small brewery in Nelson in British Columbia. I must confess I hadn't actually heard of Nelson before, and I only had a vague idea of where British Columbia was actually. The idea sounded wonderful to me, and as the quality of life and things have been deteriorating for the last few decades in England, and so I suggested a partnership. I thought it would be a lot easier for Dieter to set the brewery up with me as a partner, because I've built a brewery, well, I built two before, and are familiar with running one. So Dieter was obviously agreeable to this. So we said,
pleased.
We're excited about it.
So we set about arranging my and my family's immigration to Nelson, and selling my business and my house and all sorts of things in England, and moving over here lock, stock and barrel.
First you came for a visit, and I guess that's what
yeah, that's true. We did in November of '89. We came for an exploratory visit, because you can't just move here without having had a look at the place beforehand.
And
so
you sold him on staying here and opening up a brewery here.
Within a week, yeah.
Within a week. It's a lovely area we have here. I think we're all fortunate. How about yourself, Dieter? Your wife is from here, you say. How did?
No, she's English too, but she's been in Canada for a while now.
How did you get to be in Nelson?
I traveled the world looking for a place to live. I'm a native of Austria. Austria is a lovely country, but it was getting rather small for me. And I saw the Kootenays and felt very familiar. Everything felt like home. The scenery is quite similar to Austria, where I grew up, and yet it had this exotic flair to me, because people weren't talking Austrian or German. And that's the main reason why I decided to stay here.
Now, you were involved in brewing at all? I think you were a home brewer.
I was a home brewer.
For how long?
To start with, years. Don't know how many years. I was actually in a different profession before, but injured myself and got forced, basically, by this injury to change my career, right? That's the word I was looking for. And I thought of opening up a small brewery.
Did you know about the old Nelson Brewing Company?
I knew about the old brewery, yes. I read all about it in the museum. Sean Lamb was very helpful to give me all the details and all the background.
For our viewers that don't know, you're in the same location as the existing brewing company was.
Correct, yeah.
On Latimer Street, right?
Yeah.
Was there a lot of work to put it back into shape? It was abandoned, I think.
It was empty for quite a long time, for a very long time actually.
Yeah, it was about 30
60s,
years.
30 years or so. And therefore the work we had to do was rather a lot. But we had this vision, Patty and I, and we did it, and we got to where we wanted to be.
When did you first start? When did you actually sell your first keg in the area here?
I think it was
about a year ago.
Yeah, it was April.
So you're heading to your first anniversary?
Yes.
Or
Yeah, we're very close to our first anniversary, so we'll probably have a glass of beer together or something.
And it's been more successful than what you imagined. I remember you guys telling me a few months back in terms of the market in the local area.
I mean, a lot of people have the impression that it's like falling off a log. It's not actually been that easy. It was quite difficult to begin with, and I came up against exactly the same thing in England when I started. And when you're trying to get people to drink a new beer, you're changing the habits you're attempting to change the habits of a lifetime. If somebody's drunk brand X for most of their adult life, then getting them to try something else is often rather difficult. So it's been an uphill struggle, even just to get people to even taste our beer, just to try it once. But on the whole, because our beer, and I don't mean to sound as if I'm plugging this as an advertisement, but on the whole, because our beer is made of entirely natural ingredients, we don't use any additives or chemicals in it, and it's made of all malted barley, and there's no corn or rice dilutants in it like that. It tends to be more flavourful and moreish compared to the existing Canadian beers from large conglomerate breweries. And once you've drunk this beer for a little while, as an adult of course, then it's very hard to enjoy a glass of ordinary beer because it tends to taste rather thin and tasteless. So once we've got people trying it and drinking it for the first time, then they tend to stick with it. And so we're now doing, actually, yeah, we are. We're doing quite a higher barrelage than we'd anticipated.
Now you make ale and lager, just those two right now, but you're heading into bottle production. You were telling me in about 4 weeks' time?
Very soon, yeah.
And then that'll give us the, it'll give us the ability to, it's very difficult for us to produce more than 2 beers on draft, because you have to install lots of dispensing equipment in the bars and this kind of thing. It tends to be very expensive to produce more and different draft beers. With bottle beers it's different because we can produce a more interesting range of beers such as stouts and bock beers and all sorts of things for very little extra outlay, and thus we can offer to the people of Nelson an array of beers from representative of Dieter's country, Austria, and my country, England, which you can't get now. You can't buy here decent imported beers. They tend to be rather stale when they're imported. So we can brew them here to very authentic recipes, and so that people can enjoy them at home.
Fresh.
Yeah, in bottles.
Now, I know it was the quality of life that attracted both of you here. You've just said so, but it took quite some time to put that all into place, to get Paddy over here. Is there anything that hasn't lived up to your expectations in terms of conducting business or living within our community since you've been here?
I think that as a businessman, the biggest problem I have in Canada, which is Canadian or it's British Columbian rather than Nelson. I think Nelson's a wonderful place, and I'm having the time of my life here. But I think the biggest problem I have is with British Columbian bureaucracy. Strikes me as being absurdly top-heavy and expensive and unnecessary.
Well, the liquor laws in BC seem to be a little bit antiquated. I agree with you there. Just want to ask our callers to phone in. You may have a question about beer. Why don't you, here's your opportunity. We have 2 experts. We also would like to hear from you why you moved to Nelson. So start calling in. The number's 354-4200. In the meantime, we'll find out a little bit more about beer making while we're waiting for you, the callers, to call in. Sorry, how much beer are you producing on a week, a month? How do you?
I can tell you any way you like, really. I suppose weekly we produce. Currently, we're on approaching about 1,000 imperial gallons a week. And
distributing it. How far out?
Only the bars in Nelson. Well, no, there's 1 or 2 other bars actually. I tell a lie. There's in South Slocan and.
Wasn't Roslyn?
No longer.
No longer. Okay.
But it's primarily it's Nelson and the environ, and however our entry into bottled beers will give us a considerably wider market. We'll be able to then sell it in liquor stores in Roseland and Trail and Castlegar and Caslow and so on and so on.
Now you've both created jobs for yourself in coming to Nelson, helping the local economy just by 2, obviously. Will this expansion into bottles mean some more employees, perhaps?
It should.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, it should certainly at least 1 and probably 2 people. Great. I'd also like to point out that although we might not be directly assisting the local economy at the moment in terms of employment, we do generate an enormous amount of revenue for British Columbia in terms of the tax that we pay on the brewery. Many thousands of dollars each month.
Yes.
Actually, in this, what does it say? That you were fed up with Margaret Thatcher's controversial poll tax, and it was the final straw that brought you over here talking about taxes, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you moved to the GST.
I did, actually. I was so keen to come to Canada. and so keen to get away from Great Britain. I didn't do very much homework on the politics and the economy of British Columbia and the taxation levels and things, and they're actually fairly high here as well.
Well, in terms of politics, I think, Dieter, you would agree that the former Mayor Rodering and city administration were very helpful to you as you were trying to get Paddy and his wife and company relocated here.
It started there with Paddy's immigration, and it never ended. I mean, the local support is just tremendous.
Both in terms of that and now drinking the beer.
Yeah. Cheers. But we certainly, it was very, the Canadian authorities don't make it easy for people to move here, I must say. We certainly, I wouldn't be here now, and I don't know whether Nelson would have a brewery or not, but I wouldn't be here now if it wasn't for all the string pulling and the kind of lobbying from the politicians in Nelson. They did a bloody good job, you included, Marianne.
Thank you.
I'd say.
Are there any businesses or services that you find are still lacking in terms of continuing to attract new small business or manufacturing into the area?
I feel that, surprisingly, I thought that there'd been an awful lot of things we wouldn't be able to get here. Starting a business from scratch and starting a business that's involved engineering and plumbing and all sorts of things, large vessels and new floors and all sorts of things like that. I thought we might be up a gum tree a little bit in Nelson, but on the whole, actually, there's not a great deal that's important that you can't get here. I think the place is fairly well self-contained community myself.
How do you both feel about the recent growth of Nelson? I mean, in terms of there's a housing shortage and Nelson is almost bulging at the seams with new people coming in. Have you noticed that growth in the couple of years that you've been here?
I noticed that the house prices went up.
Because hopefully you bought before.
Just bought 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, again, talking as a businessman, I think it's wonderful. And I think the more people that live in Nelson, the better, as far as I'm concerned, from the point of view of selling beer. From the point of view of my enjoyment of the quality of life and what Nelson and the surroundings have to offer, I'm not so keen on the growth. Again, I hate to harp back to it, but the pressure on housing and the land in England is tremendous. And we spend a lot of our life there fighting planning applications for new houses and so on to be built right next to our 300-year-old cottage, which has stood alone for that length of time and so on and so on. And to come here, it is a little bit of a shock to find the same sort of thing actually going on here, in little bits of tiny bits of land, wherever they are free, they're being built upon. You sort of get the feeling that because Canada is now, I think, the largest country in the world, now that the Soviet Union's fallen apart, in terms of area, land mass, and with 24 million people, you'd think that we could all have hundreds of acres.
But everyone wants to be here.
But everyone wants to be here.
I just wanted to ask you about it being a small world with Mike Ovenell, who I mentioned has come onto the Nelson Nightline crew. You actually grew up a half a block away from him in Oxford.
It's extraordinary. I can hardly believe it. Yeah, you come halfway across the world, and Mike Ovenell comes through the door, and we went to the same school together. And well, he's a little bit older than me, a little bit, but we went to the same school. We actually shared the same headmaster for a year, and we both come from Huguenot stock from Belgium. My family, on one side, paternal side, descended from Belgium turnip farmers of Huguenot stock, as are Mike's. And yes, and here we are on the other side of the world, and yeah, we were very physically close to each other for years and years and years and years, and never even knew it. And we meet each other for the first time in Nelson. Extraordinary.
Any other expansion plans for your business outside of going into now the bottle production?
No, not really.
In fact, you both want to keep it fairly small.
We want to keep it small, keep the headaches out of the business as much as possible.
There's enough of a market just in the Nelson surrounds.
Once we're in the bottles, yes, we'll be.
Yeah, I mean there is actually
busy enough.
On draft alone, with the draft beer sales, there's sufficient business. Obviously, we want to do a little bit more business if we can, and which will be given to us in the form of bottled beer. And but really, to enjoy a place as pretty well, wonderful really as Nelson and the West Kootenays. You don't want to work too hard. You don't want to spend too much of your time working.
The quality of life
experience
is what you're looking for.
Yeah, because there's no point in living in a place like this. There's no windows in the brewery. You can't see outside anything. We're underground and everything, and there's no point in living in a place like this if you can't spend some of your time outside and you know,
especially on a day like today.
Yeah, very good fishing.
So that's part and parcel of it. To find the balance of life, you moved here because you could feel you found the balance here in creating a small business that will sustain you and get out into the environment here. We'd like to hear from you, our callers. If you have any questions, perhaps about brewing, you have any questions about that, or why you moved to the Kootenays? Are you a newcomer, or have you been here a long time? Do you want to leave the Kootenays, perhaps? Is it Shangri-La? Let us know. The number's 354-4200. Excuse me.
I was just going to say, in terms of, I'm sure you've met up with a lot of other newcomers who have moved here for the same reason. And what I'm noticing is a lot of small manufacturing. Similar to yours, we've got Holly and Sam Lazenby from Nelson Chocofellar who are coming on. And there's the BLT lighting systems. They're manufacturers of mountain head bike lights and so forth. Are there any other ones that you've come across that we might not be aware of in terms of, as we affectionately call them, urban refugees who've sought out Nelson to bring their business here?
Gosh, that's a tricky one, isn't it?
Well, not Nelson, but Ainsworth. There's this beautiful resort.
The mountain track with Wendy Pope.
Yeah.
That just opened about
Last
6
year,
months ago, 8 months ago. Yeah, that's a health resort.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah.
I don't know offhand of manufacturing ventures. Manufacturing on the whole is sort of a dirty word these days because it conjures up sort of chimney stacks and smoke.
But not, I mean, yours is really manufacturing. You're manufacturing a product, the same as the chocolate people, and they're both environmentally friendly.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know of other ones. I must say though, I think the chocolate's excellent. It's absolutely delicious chocolate.
Well, we can eat chocolate on the air. We can't drink
it's
the beer.
extraordinary, isn't it? Here we are, sitting in front of this.
Drooling.
I think this hot studio lights, we're not allowed a glass of beer. Oh well.
Well, that's again the laws of the land we were talking about a couple of minutes ago. They say you can advertise beer by having it opened on the desk, but you can't drink it.
Is this because we try to keep it a secret that we drink beer? Actually, that glass of beer is destined for my throat. Is that a top secret thing in Canada, or?
No, I think
I don't quite understand
there is the discrepancies in the laws, I think, and it's a good question. Why do they?
You should write and get the laws.
I think, well, it's very, very difficult to. I said earlier that one of the biggest problems I have is with the top-heavy bureaucracy in British Columbia. This is just an off the top of my head example at the liquor distribution branch in Vancouver, which is our sort of paymaster. They operate the sort of mafia in a way, really. They run the liquor system in British Columbia, and there's almost 500 employees in this office building in Vancouver to control the distribution of liquor in British Columbia. And I find that's an extraordinary number of people.
Very
to look
important
up.
job.
Well, it must be a very important job. Yeah.
But it's funny. It exists only here in Canada.
Well, this is what I meant. This is sort of what I meant was that British Columbia needs 500 people to organise the distribution of liquor, yet no other country in the world does. I wonder what we do wrong here. So anyway, yeah, but that's one of the things, you know, I mean, we come and live here and we just have to get used to the way things are done here, really.
Well,
perhaps lobby for change, but...
Being April Fools, we might have got away with saying this really isn't beer and have downed it.
That's an idea.
Yeah, in fact, this isn't beer in front of us at the moment. This is cold tea with a little bit of cotton wool floating on the top.
The former Nelson Brewing Company, as we were talking before the show came on the air, was started in 1893.
93, correct.
So you said you're heading to actually the 100th birthday of the building next year, and it will be coinciding with your second anniversary.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's quite a thing that almost well, give or take a year, that 100 years after its founding, that it's kind of re-established.
Name, right.
Yeah, we chose to use exactly the same name as was used before, And the building was the right place to put it because it's cold, the temperature's constant, and we're underground, and there's drains in the floors and all sorts of things. So it's a very good place to have it. It's very, very suitable for us.
You had both heard there was an artesian well underneath the building that you tried to find when you went into production, right?
Yes.
But to no success. It was just a...
Oh, we found it.
We found a well.
Yeah.
It's not an artesian well.
No, and it's festering.
Yeah.
But didn't the previous brewery market themselves as having an artesian well? Is that where the story came from?
Yeah, I believe so. They actually didn't use the water for very long, though, did they?
So
as soon as housing development went up further uphill, the water was unusable.
And it became contaminated, and we believe, we're not certain, but the research we've done would indicate that actually it was only brewed with the water from the artesian well for 2 or 3 years. Right. So
there's probably not enough old timers to remember that. So
1893.
1893 was when it started. We have a caller coming in, I believe, in a couple of minutes. No.
In fact, the first brewmaster contracted pneumonia very shortly after starting and died, didn't he?
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
good heavens.
Mr.
Why
Richter
was that?
himself.
Because of the dampness?
Yeah, it's very cold and damp.
It was also an ice factory.
That's
they
right.
used to produce ice, and I guess the temperatures were rather
I hadn't
low.
realized that.
Yeah.
Okay, we do have a caller in there now. Good evening, Nelson Nightline.
Hi, I'm just phoning because I am a newcomer. I just tuned into the show, and I've watched it other times, and you always hang up too quick on the caller. But that's my comment. I'm really happy to see a couple of businessmen on, and I'm really happy with their business. I know you're dying to drink that beer. I hope you get a chance to soon. And I'm saying why we came to Nelson was the clean atmosphere, possibly, if they get that, is it Hartford thing under control next door?
Hanford,
right, yeah. If it's, I hope it stays the way it is. I want to make one further comment in that Nelsonites are so involved in being environmentally clean and friendly and all that sometimes they're a little bit too hesitant to say no to everything. Like the golf course on the waterfront or the putting thing is like, ooh, I don't know, that's pretty safe. I don't see that as such a threat, really. I'm hoping that we can still find a medium where we can let new business in, and yet, so that we're not appearing that we're, nose up in the air and this is the perfect land, and therefore we can't have anything new and exciting here.
Have you brought a business or service to Nelson?
Pardon me?
Have you brought a business or service to Nelson?
No, actually, I'm a teacher. So, I have brought a service. Yes.
Absolutely.
And another friend has come with me who's a teacher. So, yeah, we have brought services. But mostly we're using services, which is a good thing. We've bought property here. We're not stuck on teaching. We're looking at business opportunities while we're teaching. So we're right into looking at all the possibilities here. And also another thing, streetcar. I hope it really gets happening soon. I've been hearing about it for so long since I was back in the province I came from, and it's not happening yet.
Marianne, maybe you can just tell the caller an update on what's happening with the streetcar.
Hopefully we'll have it being out and tested in the next couple of weeks. So ideally within the next month or two, you'll see it going along the waterfront.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Saw the streetcar being pulled around yesterday morning.
Oh, not on its own steam, right?
Not on its own,
they're just
right,
finishing off at the power substation, I believe, and they'll be finishing up the Lakeside Loop, and very soon, hopefully we'll see it running along there.
Good.
Maybe we can crack a bottle over the helm of the streetcar at the official opening. And
now that's a good idea.
Actually, the streetcar used to run by the Nelson Brewing Company. We've got
Absolutely.
pictures
The number
in the
23,
archive
wasn't
file. Well, all of them. I mean, the three that were here would have run up that street, up Latimer Street at one
But there's
time.
a picture of a number 23
There's a picture of
going by the
23
brewery.
in front of the brewing company, yeah.
Well, I would say that was singularly appropriate. Perhaps
Well, I
more
would
so than
as
the bottle
well.
of champagne.
oh, definitely. More. Yeah, I think.
We have another caller. Good evening, Nelson Nightline.
I've got a question for Patrick.
Fire
Go
away.
ahead.
I just, I've heard this new Labatt's Genuine Draft. Like, what's the difference between that and Nelson Brewing Company's beer?
Well, I can't actually say for certain what goes into Labatt's Genuine Draft. All I can say for certain is that our beer contains malted barley, hops, water and yeast and nothing else at all. I think it's probably unlikely that that applies to Labatt's genuine draft. I would like to point out that for all of my life and for the past 300 or so years in Britain, bottled beer is bottled beer and draft beer comes out of a keg. And I don't quite see how you can have genuine draft if it's in a bottle myself. I don't understand that. There is another little point too, that they play on the fact that the beer is cold filtered. You might notice lower down on the label it says in large letters cold filtered, as if this is some extraordinary new process which Labatt's have developed. Every single brewery, and I state this categorically, every single brewery in North America cold filters their beer, including us. So our beer is cold filtered as well.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
I don't want to have people beating down your doors, but I've had an opportunity to tour through your facility. Is there a chance for local people, if they're interested, to... Is there a special day that you're open for tours through? Is that something that doesn't, you know, coincide with the production in terms of health reasons and whatnot? Because it's a fascinating tour to see your operation.
To have, it is, because it's food production.
Maybe for your anniversary.
Yeah, we are actually getting it fixed up so that we're kind of smartening up the front room and things a little bit, aren't we? So that by the summer we hope to actually offer organised tours, maybe once a week or so, for people who'd like to come around to see. Yeah. Because we would like to reciprocate with the people of Nelson who help us so much by drinking our beer and supporting us.
But also the many visitors that come.
Absolutely.
Right. And for that reason we also shall have a store in the brewery to sell beer right out of the brewery.
Oh, great.
We are applying for this license. I have applied a long time ago, haven't heard from the LDB in about 6 months. Right. But yeah, we will have regular tours, probably starting this summer.
Excellent. Well, are we...
I think we're almost ready for our break. I think we have another set of street interviews. Marianne, maybe you can tell me a little bit about...
well, again, Mike Ovenell, when he was out doing his streeter interviews last Friday, he asked a series of questions. The ones we're going to go to is to find out what businesses or services people have brought. I first of all would like to thank both of you for joining us. I wish you all the best with your bottle production.
Thanks.
And maybe we'll just go cheers to you.
Yeah, but
even
be careful.
though we can't drink it.
God, smells
good luck.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks.
Outdoors.
All right.
I love nature. I used to live in Vancouver, and city life is quite different from this.
Well, I went to David Thompson University for quite a while, and I learned a lot about my writing skills, and I have since done a lot of human services kind of work here, which I'm still involved with.
What did I bring to Nelson? I transferred with my job here with the government.
Well, I'm a writer, and so it was great to find a community of 10,000 where there's actually an active writers group. My wife is a housing developer, and she found that there's certainly lots of potential for planning and housing work around housing in this town. You know, so you have a lot of things that you would consider or associate with large urban centers that are found here, and yet you don't have the crime, and you don't have there's no needle exchange program in Nelson, which is nice.
Well, renovation skills, art, artistic abilities, music, sort of from my husband's side, and then myself, I'm a palmist. Wow. And so I bring consulting abilities to town.
Well, I'd been in the finance business and the automobile business on the coast, and my father was in real estate, and I found a position in the real estate industry.
Not much. I'm just a student. I go to Selkirk out in Castlegar.
So you just come into Nelson to... That's right. Well, I've been gone to Europe for the last 7 months with my family, and we're just restarting our telephone service and things like that. So I've just picked up a telephone. Something we don't have the telephone shop in Castle, so I do. But I do come in occasionally. I do buy products here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, welcome back to Nelson Nightline, ladies and gentlemen. Again, our focus of the night is why people move to Nelson. We've heard from our first set of guests, and right now we have two new guests. We have Rosy Wallace and her son Robbie Rosy moved to Nelson and opened up Rosy's Laundromat and Cappuccino Bar. Good evening, Rosy. Good evening, Robbie. How are you doing?
Hello, both of you.
Maybe you can just start by telling us where you're from, when you moved to Nelson, and the story of opening Rosy's Laundromat. I think it's a great idea with the flowers in the windows. You've got just the right touch, and having a little cappuccino bar adds another different touch to it.
Yeah, another dimension.
Yes.
We moved here, myself and my two sons, a year and a half ago. Before that, I'd come here skiing one weekend. Really liked it and just kept coming back over the winter. It was time to move out of Vancouver, and I thought, well, where am I going to move to? And I knew two people in Nelson, and I thought, well, that's a good place to go. And bought a house, and then it was one of those ideas that just came out of the blue.
Really?
A laundromat.
You saw that there was an opening in the laundromat market, and the idea, I guess, that was the Heritage auto dealership.
It was a
Chevrolet's dealership there, sitting vacant.
Yeah, I looked for a place to lease, and there wasn't one available. So I thought, well, just take a risk and jump off the cliff and look around for some place to buy. And that seemed to be about the only available location. And the Cappuccino Bar, that idea came along with the idea for the laundromat. So I thought, well, let's go for it.
Actually, when I was talking to you on the phone last week, you said, what do I know better about laundry, and why not make it an enjoyable experience for everybody to come in and do their laundry? Well,
exactly. I have 4 children. I've done a lot of laundry. And in the houses that I've lived in, I've always made the laundry room a really pleasant place to be because I spent so much time there. So I always have natural light, music, and just make it an enjoyable environment. So that was my idea, just to have, it's an everyday chore, let's enjoy it, and have flowers and just a comfortable place to be.
Actually, we discovered your Cappuccino Bar, and we have our pre-production meetings there once a week on Monday afternoons, which is a great environment to be in.
Yeah.
Robbie, how are you finding it in Nelson, having moved from the big city of Vancouver?
Well,
lots to do?
Yep, there's a lot of neat sports here, and the kids at school are a lot easier. Well, it's a lot easier to be accepted.
So you like a smaller town as opposed to the city?
Sort of.
You like skiing and water sports and all of the things that Nelson has to offer for you?
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah. They play hockey hockey in the winter. That's a new winter sport for the boys. We've skied a lot on the coast, and I still ski, but the boys are into hockey, which is a new thing for them.
Now you saw this niche for your own business. You must have been looking for other ideas. What else do you see that should or could be started in Nelson? Does anything come to mind, Rosie?
I've very much been focused on my own business. Yes. It's really taken up most of my time. And I have I love being in a small city, but there were a couple of things that I really missed about Vancouver and being a big city, and that was being able to buy a cappuccino on a Sunday. Everything was closed. And also being able to have a place to go in the evening, like after a movie or after a performance, and to join with friends and discuss things at any time after 10 o'clock at night, when we're open till 11. So in the summer times, if you're out later on, you can drop in for a cap or after skiing, and we're open until 11 at night every night of the week. So that was certainly a plus. That's a city way that I brought with me.
Well, we only live a block away, and we do that quite often, and my son has discovered your arcade.
Yes, yes, there's yeah, and there's a pinball machine in there because I like to play pinball.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, though. There aren't a lot of places open on a Sunday. If we're trying to develop a tourist industry in town, I wonder why we aren't attracting more businesses to open their doors on Sunday to the tourist population. You're opening to the general local public, not even tourists, really.
Yes, yeah, and also it's a place. It's a non-alcoholic setting, so therefore there are families that can go, and we have a stage there, so there's space for entertainment of all types, from the whole variety of music to poetry readings to there's a youth forum there last week, and so it's really opening up the space to the community to use, and for entertainment and for business meetings or
you have
that
some
line too.
Wonderful art on display. I noticed there a few weeks ago.
Robert Hendricks is just exceptional.
Fabulous.
Landscape paintings, and there's gallery space also for artists to display their creative works.
Do you change it every so often?
Yes, we do, but I've really fallen in love with Robert Hendricks, and I'm probably going to stay for a while longer. Yeah.
I think maybe we'll just remind our viewers, if they'd like to call in, our number is 354-4200. Maybe you want to find out about how to do your clothes properly. Here's a chance to talk to Rosy from Rosy's Laundromat. She has plenty of experience, and a newcomer like some of you, I hope. Give us a call and let's hear about your experiences in moving to Nelson.
Actually, Rosie, when you talk about being open till 11, one of the people we interviewed in the street interviews, her biggest complaint was that the streets roll up at 5:30.
Yes.
And that your business is one of those that is, maybe is the start of other businesses doing the same thing.
Yeah, and also I'd like to mention that we don't, there are no cooking facilities on the premises. We're able to display the cooking skills of so many people in this area. They're wonderful, wonderful cooks and bakers. So we have the Kootenai Baker, we have Alleyway Cafe with their wonderful desserts. Eva from outside in the area brings her great food in, and so that's another way of displaying the talents in this area. So.
And Nelson Chocofellar chocolates.
Oh, I have the chocolates. Yes,
they're coming on next.
Yes, and one of the competition, Eric's chocolates from Vienna Cafe too, and just the really special talents in this area.
You have a real focus on health food too, don't you?
Very much so. Very much so. Unusual, wholesome foods, lots of organic foods, some that aren't, and just a real variety.
I think it's just great. I think it's one of the nicest additions into Nelson's business community in a long time. Really appreciate it.
Well, there's plans to put on a patio and outside eating area, so be able to be under the hopefully blue sky and
you co-share the building with another business as well, don't you?
Yes, yes. Interior Tire, John Rowley and Wendell Wilkie are tenants.
Now, is that your property behind the car parking lot that was a part of the building?
It's not, no, it's not.
Okay, just wondered if you had development plans for there as well.
I have all I can handle right now.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, I do. I'm a real neophyte in the business, so I've got my hands full.
I've heard in one of the trend magazines and whatnot that actually the kind of laundromat cappuccino bar that you've started is a real place for singles to meet, almost coming out of the singles bar and clubs, because everyone has to do laundry. And
exactly, it's a social setting, and that's very much so.
But the ambiance, in terms of driving by with the ferns and the benches, I mean, it just makes it a real neat place to go to.
Yes, and why not? Yeah, why not have a comfortable place to be?
Actually, when we were in there the other day, I saw some, it looked like kids from the high school, maybe on their lunch break, because I know they have the longer class times now playing Trivial Pursuit in there. I thought that was the neatest thing to see them.
And there are some classes that take place actually in the Cappuccino bar. They come and they have off-campus classes. Yeah, and theater sports and small plays, and there's all sorts of things happening.
Well, you certainly brought a good idea to the Kootenays. I think everybody could agree to that. Is there anything you'd like to see brought in that you need as a service? Are you finding everything you need as services to operate your business here locally?
Yes, very much so. I've had tremendous community support from Nelson. after just moving here a year and a half ago and being able to open up just 2 new businesses without any real previous business experience hands-on, I've had wonderful support from this whole community, and I feel very
I think we're going to move to our last set of street interviews to find out if any of the people in the street had any ideas on what else should be moved into Nelson. I'd like to thank both you, Rosie, and you, Robbie. Thank you for coming onto the show, for bringing us some cappuccino. We're going to get back.
Thank you both as well. Yeah.
Get back to the next guests.
Okay, we'll go to the streeters.
Well, I actually live in Belfort right now, so I'm not in town all that often to things like that you might go to in the evening. I've been to a couple of musical concerts at the Capitol Theatre, which were good. I think that's great for a city this size. It's got a lot of art-type people, creative people, music. The music school's really good. I go up there fairly often.
The sidewalks roll up at 5:30. Nothing's open past 9 o'clock. There's only 2 Insta-tellers for banks. There's no drugstores open past 5:30. There's only 1 large store here, like Wilco. God, I can go on forever.
Okay. I think there's a need for young people to have a lot more things happening for them. I think a lot of young people between the ages of at least 15 to 20 are quite bored here and wanting things to do. They need more of an outlet for either educational purposes or recreational things. And there's not enough of that going on for them right now.
I see nothing missing in Nelson. Nelson's a perfect community. Consensus? Actually, not much. In terms of urban, I think a lot of the urban planning here has happened by default because we simply can't expand. And yet this has the most viable downtown core of nearly any community I can think of, and that's really important to me. What's it missing? It's got a good bookstore, got a good library, got a good swimming pool. Maybe a little bit more consensus, a little bit more of an attempt at consensus, and a little bit more imagination.
Access is to more variety and more resources. In that sense, I would like to see, believe it or not, I would like to see a different kind of mall for shopping areas. And even though there's quite a bit of shopping here to do the access to resources and that, could use I would like to see a pet store. A pet store. I just love fish, and I'm an aquarium nut, and they don't have a pet store here, so I'd have to think about that. Okay. Yeah.
Well, when you live in a small town like this, you don't end up with the major entertainment available to you, pro sports, theater, and that type of thing. But if you look at Nelson now, the way it's growing, we've got major television now. We've got all the channels we want. And our new theater here is now brought in live entertainment to provide that. So the few things that are missing now are well offset with the fresh air, the clean water, and so on. It's a really healthy lifestyle living here.
I can't think of something specific right at the moment. Okay. But there are things. It certainly has improved over the last few years.
Okay. Probably because of a lot of the new people coming?
Oh, yes.
I wouldn't change a whole lot, actually. I like it. I like it the way it is. It has a really nice, that's what I'm looking for. Sort of atmosphere, real nice feel to it. Mm-hmm. Sort of. This part of Nelson, anyways, is like Baker Street area, and it doesn't have a McDonald's. It doesn't have, well, it has the 7-Eleven further on, but that's all on the other side. This part here is just great.
I'd like to see a lot more done with the waterfront. I see that we have this beautiful lake. I know with the Castle we have a large waterfront along there, which makes the place much more attractive. And Nelson, until recently, has sort of turned its back on it. Mm-hmm. I see, this may be controversial, but I think the power poles that provide electricity to the streetcar down there really look terrible along the waterfront. Maybe one concession to modernization could be some sort of a battery-powered electric motor, and so that you can still have the streetcar go along the streets there, but not with the power poles. I think a lot more thought could have been done. I'd like to see the university going again. I think that would be great. But I haven't been gone for about 7 months. I'm not quite up on all the issues, but I don't know. It's got a lot to offer.
Great.
I've traveled a lot around different places in North America and Europe, and this is still one of the nicest places to live.
Packaged up some Nelson stuff for her. Well, good evening again, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Nelson Nightline. We've got our final set of guests for the night, the co-owners of the Nelson Chocofellar Chocolate Manufacturing Company. Our guests are Sam and Holly Lazenby. Good evening, Sam. Good evening, Holly. Hi. I was just before we came on the air telling you guys, I just sent some of this chocolate down to Florida. I hope it got there without melting. My mom's living there, and I sent her a little package of Nelson little artifacts, and this was included in it, so your product is getting wider circulation than you may think.
Good, thank you.
Maybe you can just start off again like our other guests in tonight's show. Let us know where you came from and how you came to Nelson. You have a story to be told, I'm sure.
Oh, well, I passed through Nelson quite a few times on my motorcycle when I lived in Ontario. Oh, and then when I lived in Calgary, I came out here skiing quite a bit. And drove around these parts because I like the scenery and the lake, and Holly would likely like to add something now.
You're from Ontario?
No, I'm from Calgary. I had lived there for quite some time, and both of us had just decided that we needed a breakout when we came to the Roslyn area to ski for a week. And skiing was good, and we decided, well, we'd check out the rest of the area. And a friend of ours said, well, if you're looking around in this area, you should check out Nelson. So we drove through, and when the hills part and you see the valley and the town exposed below us, both of our jaws hit the floor, and we just went, wow.
Our panorama behind us.
We could live here. We could live here. Yes. So in 4 days, we shopped around, looked at houses, and we bought a house. And then on the way back to Calgary, we kind of looked at each other and said, we now live in Nelson. We have to go quit our jobs and move to Nelson. And we just said, okay, sure, why not? So when we came here, Sam came out in June, and I came and followed in November. I was about 7.5 months pregnant, so I was out of the workforce, and Sam's skills as a chocolate maker had to be put to use. So we did a lot of testing and a lot of sampling in the kitchen, and lined some friends up for a taste test one night, and just sent them home completely sky high on chocolate. And it was a good feeling that these people really were enthusiastic about having us here, and were very encouraging to us. So it was kind of like, well, do we or don't we? And pretty soon it got to the option where we didn't have a choice. We had to do something, so we gave it a go. We also, the CRETA group in town was a big help to us, and we worked with them for a year on the SEI grant. And without them, I'm not sure if we could have done it quite so well.
Was this a dream to own your own chocolate business where you were living, or just something, well, okay, we're coming to Nelson, we've got to do something, which is so often what would I do here?
Yeah, it was
and
kind of...
the dream becomes a reality, basically.
Panic season, you know, our savings and bank accounts were going down, and we were having a great time, but we needed to replenish that for a while. So it actually was something that we needed to do, and both of us have kind of sat back and almost in awe of what's happened. And the people of Nelson have been incredibly supportive to us, and like you said, you're always sending it someplace. Well, we've had people sending it to Japan and Australia, and the one that was sent to Australia got there melted because it was in summer, and every day the little girl met the postman at the door thinking he was bringing more chocolates for Canada.
Great. I'm just going to interrupt. I think we have another call, and we'll continue with you guys.
Good evening, Nelson Nightline.
Oh, I'd just like to say how much I'm enjoying your show. I was listening to the beer people. Paddy Glenny, I thought he was a little bit irreverent, didn't you, about the bureaucracy, particularly in the trade he's in.
He's living life on the edge, I guess. Are you a newcomer to Nelson yourself?
Yes, I'm a newcomer to Nelson. I came here to survive, and I'm surviving.
We're happy to hear that.
What I was wondering about was whether you'd heard about the cable car that they're thinking of connecting from the Heritage up to Mountain Station. Is that something you're going to be looking at?
I've heard about that one.
Yes, I have as well.
Up to Whitewater.
And then there was the water slide, the McDonald's water slide. I think you're going to be dealing with that one next week. Is that right?
2 weeks' time.
2 weeks' time.
The McDonald's water slide. Yeah, there are plans, I understand, for a water slide and McDonald's, the floating McDonald's from Expo. I've heard about that.
Right. So those two, I think, will be good. But going back to today's thing, the chocolate people. I've seen those. The guy you're interviewing is crazy. He's one of these theater sports people.
Do you think it's the chocolate?
I think it is the chocolate. He's also addicted. I know he's a chocoholic.
Yes, I know that as well.
Thank you very much for your call. We'll leave it at that.
Now, Sam, it's time to fess up. Holly did tell us how much chocolate you used to consume. I understand it's used to. She cut you off.
I would go through a 5-kilogram slab in a month easily.
Now, 5 kilograms is, because I've seen your 5 kilograms.
It's big.
That's big.
What were you? I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Continue. I'm getting sidetracked here, but how much did you weigh?
He burns it off.
You burn it off.
24 hours a day.
In Calgary, what were you doing before you decided to become chocolate manufacturers? You weren't in the business, were you?
No, we had left for a year, and we went traveling through the States and Rarotonga and New Zealand and Australia. And when we got back, we needed jobs, and Holly got her old job back, and I wanted to try something different. So I was looking through the paper for a car to buy, a house to rent, and a job. That was the last to find. But I saw chocolate maker wanted. No experience necessary, will train, and I've loved chocolate ever since I was a baby.
Now, I would like to get in, it's Belgian chocolate, right? Pure Belgian chocolate.
Yes,
and you had tested, what did you say, Holly? I mean, how many brands did you guys go through?
We tested several different varieties, and we came back to the one that Sam had worked with and was familiar with, and we enjoy. I mean, we must admit we do consume a fair bit of our own products. It's the Belgian chocolate that we do use.
And we've only got 1 minute to go. We mentioned you can get it at Rosy's, Cappuccino and Laundromat. You can get it at Figments. And we got one last caller. Good evening, Nelson Nightline.
Yes, good evening. I'd like to know where we can buy these chocolates here in Nelson.
Actually, sir, we were just saying that on the air. It was at Rosy's Laundromat, Figments.
Right now, Figments have the chocolates.
Okay.
They're the only place in Nelson that have the chocolates.
Okay, it's just the chocolate bars that are
The
at
chocolate
Rosy's.
bars are quite a few different places. Family Deli and Meats, Kootenai Co-op, Figments, Rosy's, Lakeside Fruit Stand, Duhamel Store.
So you're getting wide distribution.
Yeah.
Just keep your eyes on the shelves and look for a place that may have chocolates. Rosy's Laundromat and a bunch of others.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. We have the pleasure of renting office space at the Commission right beside these two. So I often, walking down the hall, smell this wonderful aroma coming through the hallways.
I'm just going to remind our viewers that tonight's show will be rebroadcast on Friday at 11 a.m. and on Sunday at 8 p.m. if you want to watch the show again. I'd like to thank both our guests, our last guest tonight, Holly, and Sam. Sorry, Sam. It was the beer from the first guest. I thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you both.
Have a good night. Happy April Fool's Day.
Yes, happy April Fools.
Well, I understand that the water slide is going in on the waterfront.
And the McDonald's.
And the McDonald's.
Yeah. And that Sheridan.
Yes.
Boy, things are really changing.
That'll be great. Well, maybe you could sell your chocolates right at the McDonald's. If you get them at one McDonald's, you got to get it across the world.